Hello everyone, welcome to week 2 of Principles of Commercial Law. This week we'll be talking about bailment, a legal relationship where one party, the bailer, gives another party, the bailee, possession of goods for safekeeping or for some other purpose. Bailment is a really important relationship for commercial law as it sustains so many industries including the transport of goods, hire arrangements, repair services and more. It's also a reasonably straightforward topic, which makes it a great starting point for us. In this video, we'll cover 4 topics: the separation of possession and ownership, 3 conditions of bailment, types of bailment, and circumstances or relationships that do not give rise to a bailment. Central to bailment is the idea that possession and ownership are not the same thing. Possession is having a thing under your control or having something. You're holding it, or you've got it locked in your house and only you have a key. You possess that thing because you have control over it. You can access it whenever you want, move it, destroy it, you're in control. Ownership, on the other hand, is the legal title over the thing. Most commonly, it's because you bought it, so you therefore own it. A really tangible example is a car, where ownership is clear because it's registered. Often possession and ownership are held by the same person, so we tend not to think about it too much. You own the computer you bought, but you also have possession because you're the one using it. But for bailment, it's important to be able to conceptualize possession and ownership as being separate. You can own a thing and not have it under your control, and you can possess something without owning it. In those cases, a bailment might arise. So, a bailment arises when 3 conditions are met. First and most fundamentally, bailment arises when the owner, as bailer, retains ownership of a thing, but possession is transferred to someone else. For example, I retain ownership of my car, but my friend borrows it. I still own the car, but I don't have possession of it anymore. Second, there's a requirement that the bailee, the person in possession of the goods, returns the goods or delivers them as instructed to a third party. So while the bailee has possession, it's not a permanent arrangement. There's no requirement that the date of return be set at the time possession is transferred, although some bailment agreements might set a time frame. But the important thing is that there is an expectation that the goods will be returned or passed on according to the bailor's instructions. Third, the exact same goods must be returned. An arrangement where an equivalent quantity of similar goods are returned is not a bailment. While alterations can be made per the bailor's instructions, the important thing is that the exact thing over which the bailer has ownership is returned. To explore those 3 conditions a little bit further, let's look at a classic example of taking your car to a mechanic. In that scenario, you own the car, so you're the bailer. When you take the car to a mechanic for a service, they take possession of the car, so they're the bailee. Here you can see the separation of possession and ownership. You still own the car because it's your car, but the mechanic has control over it. They've got the keys, they can drive it around. So in terms of the first condition, this is met because you retain ownership of the car while the mechanic has possession only. Second, the bailee has to return the goods to the bailor. In this case, the mechanic has to give your car back once it's been serviced. That's pretty straightforward. Third, the exact same goods must be returned. The mechanic has to give your car back, not someone else's. They will service or repair your car, but only according to your instruction, for example, an oil change, installing a new engine, etc. And they can't make further alterations without your consent. According to Lord Holt in Coggs and Bernard, there are 7 different types of bailment. They have some common elements, and the main distinguishing feature is whether they are done gratuitously or for payment. This distinction is important because it can affect the rights and duties of the bailee. In broad terms, a bailee for payment is held to a higher standard than a gratuitous bailee. So 3 key variations are the deposit of goods for safekeeping, the delivery of goods for work to be done on them, and the delivery of goods for use. For each of those 3 types, the bailee can either receive a reward or not, which gives us 6 different types of bailment. On top of that, the delivery of goods held as security for a loan stands out as a 7th type of bailment. Lastly for this video, let's look at 2 types of relationship that are not bailments. First, A licence is not a bailment because possession is not transferred. This was important in Greenwood and Waverley Council, where Greenwood hired a locker at Bondi Beach and stored personal items there. As Greenwood had the key to the locker for the hire term, this meant that he still had control over the items, and possession never transferred from him to the council. Accordingly, there could be no bailment. Second, sales or trusts do not give rise to a bailment relationship because ownership is transferred as well. This is most obvious in a sale scenario, where the purchaser becomes the new owner of the goods and also takes possession of them. The situation is a little more complicated in a trust situation because we're dealing with trustees and beneficiaries, where the trustee holds the item for the benefit of the beneficiary. However, the key difference is that while the trustee holds the goods for the beneficiary, that is, has possession, they also have legal ownership over the good during that time. Exploring the differences between bailments and other types of commercial and legal relationships highlights just how important it is to determine who has ownership and who has possession. This is something that you need to look at with reference to the facts. This will enable you to work out whether a bailment has been created. From there, the next step is to determine the respective rights and duties of the bailor and bailee. This is the subject of our next video.